Hi, this is Chris Goldthorpe with Fritz16.com, and the purpose of this video is to show you some of the useful tools that you can use software-wise, which include the latest Fritz16, which is a 64-bit chess analysis program. It has a lot of useful features and some important upgrades from previous versions of Fritz. Okay, let's see if we can. Okay, so one thing that people like to do is they like to take a score sheet on paper from one of their games and enter the moves into the computer. So how do you do that? Well, you don't want to play a game against the computer. You want to be able to play moves for both sides. So click on New Game, save what you've got if you need to. Make sure you're in the database that you want to save the game into if you want to save it. And in a minute I'm going to show you some good ways of deciding where to save your files and how to deal with it. Also, I'm going to familiarize you with certain types of notation that we always see when computers analyze something. Okay, so here we have our chessboard. Now, if you go to Infinite Analysis, you'll see this up here on the top. If you don't see Infinite Analysis over here, you're on the wrong tab over here. You know, like if you go here or here, you're not going to see it over there. You got to be on the one that says Home. Then you go to Infinite Analysis, and I would recommend go to Opening Book here because most of your early moves are going to be one that you can just click on like this. So let's say you have a game that went like this, and you're just entering the moves of the game that you played. And I'm going to deliberately make a big blunder here and resign just to save time in just a minute. We'll get us just barely out of book, and then I'll blunder for one side, and then the game will be over, as if I were a player at the strength that didn't recognize it to be a blunder. I don't know. Let's say he thought that this was a good move here. And we see now that white has gone to plus 1.2 or something. Well, suppose he takes this, and then black anxiously makes this move and finds out that what did he miss? Well, he's going to go ahead and go here. He expected something else, and let's suppose he takes this, and then white takes back. Well, black gave away two pieces for a rook and a pawn, and white's a little bit better. Well, we'll say he goes here, and let's suppose white does this, and he goes here, and he does this, and let's say he takes the knight, oops, and then he takes the queen, and then let's say black resigns here. Now, you're going to press F2, your function key 2 on your keyboard, to be able to enter the results. I would type the last name here, white last name, and over here we have white's first name. And then over here, same thing, black last name and black's first name. Tournament. People often don't bother with this, but I think it is important at least that you know something about it. You could put July 4th tornado. And I always like to let myself know what kind of a time control it was. Let's say it was game 45, G/45. That's what that means. I'm going to want it to show me the ECO code. I'll explain later why that might be important. And where it says ELO, that means that's from Arpad Elo. He was a statistician who created the chess rating system. So we refer to a chess rating as a ELO. And rather than to checkbox this, just put in a number here. Let's say white was 2015, and let's say black was 1750. And the game ended up with white winning. And this might have been, let's say, that was in round 1. You know, big rating difference there, round 1. And click OK. And now this game is still not saved. If you want to save the game, I save my over-the-board games in a file called otb.pgn. And I have a directory right off the C drive called C/PGN. Or it's actually \PGN. And then I have one that's CBH. CBH stands for a chess-based format. When you save a file as CBH, there will be a number of files that end with point C, B, and then another letter. And they need to all be in the same directory when you transport them. PGN files are a little easier to transport. That means move from one computer to another. And they're better for sending a game to somebody if they want to just know the game. So we see here that indeed black's resignation was very appropriate. White was ahead, plus 9.5 pawns worth, which is like more than a queen. So we can agree that black made some serious mistake. Now, you watching the video, you know, we know what it is, but for the purposes of explanation, we'll say black wasn't really clear or doesn't remember where he went wrong. One of the things we can use is this thing down here called the evaluation profile. Now, if you want to see it bigger, you can come up here where it says View and click on Evaluation Profile, and it just makes it bigger. This is like a graph of the evaluation of the game after each player's move. This is the move number here. We notice that it was never below this line. This is the 0. This is equality. If it's below the line, it means it's better for black. Above the line means better for white. It's listed in units of a pawn. So 9.54 means, based on the heuristics and the way the computer is programmed, it believes that this position is the equivalent of about 9.5 pawns better for white. It doesn't mean white is ahead by that much material. It means that when we take everything into account, positional and all sorts of other factors, that the computer considers this to be 9.5 pawns better for white. And that's why it says plus minus. If this were negative 9.54, it would say minus plus. The one in front is for white, the second one is for black. This shows a string of moves, each one of which is considered the best move that the computer can find at this point, and it has been thinking 14 moves deep, which is about like 28 ply. So this is how we can look at the game move by move. Now if I click on score sheet, or see this little arrow over here, I can go all the way over here if I really want to see the notation. Now at this point there's no commentary in the game, but I can see here it's like plus 9 points. So white is obviously winning here after this move by black. So let's go to black's previous move, A5. And again, this is rescaled itself because now up to here the biggest difference from 0 is only about 2. So by comparison they made this appear larger, but it didn't really change yet. Now here white is clearly winning, plus 2.15, but not so much that in a game between two beginners I would put no better than 2-1 in white's favor here in a game between beginners. Now, of course, in a game between masters, black would just resign here. I'm talking about players like, say, below 1400 or kids games. You'll see games imbalanced as this one go the wrong way very often. Okay, so, but we're still looking. I would say if your student is like above like 600 strength, we're still looking for how did they get this badly off. Anytime you see plus minus, we're looking for a reason why, or you should be. Let's say rook b8, and it was 1.75, still essentially, clearly winning for white. Let's split the difference. Go back to move 7. After d5, we have typical scores for the game, even a little bit lower than normal. Normally, Fritz, at the very beginning of the game, will think that the game's like about 0.30 or something. Let's see. Yeah, 0.21 at the very beginning of the game. So it has a little bit of a bias in favor of white. So you can't always worry that it's a little bit in the plus, especially if you're the black pieces. But after black's 7th move, which is a book move here, everything was fine. So we expect that. When we look in open book, we see that the move made was the move actually done. See, this will highlight the move that was actually played if that move was actually played, even if it's not the top one here. Okay, so far these are all book moves. This is a book move. This is the number 1 most likely book move. Now this move isn't. Notice it's completely off the list of normal alternatives. Knight c5 would have been a normal move here for black. But since I just wanted to make this example short, I did this move. Now, right now, you can see the evaluation is at 0.25. And as soon as I make this next move, it went up by almost a full pawn. Anything more than about 3/4 of a pawn is clear enough that we can say, yeah, that's definitely a factor in what happened. And notice over here, all of a sudden we see this little blip here of how white is better off. Now, if we're not going to go through the game move by move, as I just did with infinite analysis on, what you can do is after you can have Fritz just analyze the whole game. So let's see what that looks like, and I'll have some stuff to tell you while it's doing it. You can always go back to the very beginning like this. Click on this tab that says Analysis, and then go to Full Analysis. Sometimes you just go to Blunder Check. Full Analysis sometimes involves more material than a student's really interested in or can benefit from. For instance, it'll make references to whole master games that I don't really expect new, especially young players, to go through all of. So sometimes you can just use Blunder Check. Full Analysis will take a little longer. So I'm just going to use Full Analysis this time because I want to show you what the training feature looks like. If there were already annotations in here, you might want to make sure this is not checked. So let's go ahead and at 6 seconds per move, this short game won't take very long, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Now this is the number of moves in the game here. This is the move number that it's on. We see it going through the board. We see what it's thinking as it's going through the game. Notice it starts at the end and will go backwards to the beginning. Also, let's take a quick look at some of these notations. You see the question mark here. That's a subjective editorial comment, but it's not too subjective. I mean, true enough, we can't prove that white can checkmate in a particular number of moves, but having given away his queen, I think every reasonably strong player is reasonably convinced that that's a horrible move. But let's take a look at this number here. 9.59/17. That means it's based upon a 17 move deep position. And the computers do not make an exhaustive search. They do use some heuristics to decide what to look at and what not to, and that's why they've gotten a lot better. Here it was plus 2.32 based on 19. So that's even it may not seem like it, but this 2.32 among strong players is almost as significant as the 9.59. As soon as it's like more than 2 toward one side or the other, between good players, the game's pretty much decided. So, but if we look at this graph here, it makes it very clear where we should look. Also, with this mode of analysis, it will put in what it calls training questions. So in a certain position, it will say what moves should be made. It could be from a position where you made a mistake and the computer has a way to take advantage of it, or it might be where your opponent made a mistake. Whether you saw what to do or not, it'll put a puzzle in there. These are the most useful puzzles as well. Okay, and it did not see fit to, as far as I can tell, to put any training questions in here. And I'm not sure what that thing means there. Oh, okay, that shows what happened with the bishop, where it goes. Okay, A6. Okay, and so up to here, everything was book. Notice it says live book, 494 games there. Knight takes F2. That capital N means novelty. I say it simply means no. Like, don't do it. Bad move. And notice that we get an evaluation right after that move. So it'll often put in the evaluation when it changes. Now, if I go right to here, this is, see how it jumps up? That's where black made this first mistake. And now right here, this is where black makes the second mistake. Right when he takes that, that's when it goes way up. Yellow is like me, almost like red alert. You know, it's much more serious. So, what I would recommend to do is to save your games in a PGN file, and then take the exact same game and save the same game when you type in the moves and type in the information on who the players were, like we did when we did this. And after you do that, also save it in a CBH file. And then when you get to the CBH file, do what I've done here. You can analyze the game. So, let's see, it doesn't even make a training question there because it's apparently too obvious. So this is how we can use Fritz to archive your games and to save them. Now, one thing that you may want to do sometimes is to send your games to someone else. Let's say you have a chess teacher who doesn't live in your city. They live somewhere else. Maybe you're going to send it to somebody or go over a game with them. It's a lot easier to send the PGN file, not the CBH file. So the simplest thing to do there, it's just like a text file. So like if you want to see a text file, let's pick a PGN file so that you can see what the PGN is an ASCII file, American Standard for Communication Information Interchange. ANSI is American National Standards. PGN stands for Portable Game Notation, and it was developed as a convention for the storage and transfer of chess games. So here's my PGN file, and I'm going to go star.pgn, and let's say I want to take and share a game with somebody. Let's say I'll take this game here and save it, and we'll go File. Okay, it doesn't let me copy it there. Good enough. I'll go Control-C on the keyboard. I've copied it, and now I can create a new file and go Control-V. And from here, I assume you know how to use your email and files. This video is not to teach you all about how to use your computer, but this is the same as any text file. It takes up very little space and is very safe and cannot possibly contain a virus. So somebody can always download it with confidence, and they just download this into their Fritz, and then they can see all the moves immediately. So of course with Fritz, anytime I click on a move, the board position immediately goes to where that move had just been made, and I can always turn infinite analysis back on afterward if I want to scrutinize something. As you go from one move to the next, if the change here is less than, I would say, 0.1, it might not be important. But if it's bigger than half a pawn, it's almost always important. Okay, so this is how you can find the turning points in your game. A very useful thing for beginners to do, especially if you don't have a regular chess coach, is to get your game and then do the analysis here. Look at the evaluation profile, and there's really just like two big mistakes here, but we could say that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. You might want to find the top 2 even, and then just study whatever it turns out you need to study to avoid similar such mistakes. It could be that you made a mistake in the opening because you didn't know the opening, or you just were careless tactically, but whatever it is, Fritz is going to catch the tactical errors. So hopefully this is helpful.